Okay, we will begin. Greetings, everyone. My name is Andrii Biletskyi. I am Administrative Director of the Anti-Corruption Research and Education Center at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, or ACREC, as we are shortly named. And I'd like to welcome you to the first Respond online seminar with the title Political Corruption, Digital Transparency, and Democratic Resilience in Wartime and Recovery. As you all know, Ukraine is in the war today with Russia, and armed conflicts and post-war recovery, they reshape how the political power is exercised, especially by creating and increasing risks of corruption due to the concentrated decision-making processes and slightly reduced oversight. Of course, these risks can undermine trust, weaken institutions, and threaten democratic resilience. In this context, digital transparency tools play a vital role by increasing accountability, limiting abuse, and supporting oversight. In this event, we're going to explore how such tools can help safeguard democracy during these turbulent times, especially with the lessons from Ukraine. This webinar is organized by ACREC as part of the EU-funded project called Respond. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat. You will have this opportunity. Each of the speakers will have around 10 to 12 minutes to present their presentation, and at the end we will have a bit of time for the Q&A session. So please type your questions in the chat, and me as a moderator, I will collect them and ask the designated speakers to reflect on these questions. I also want to note that this event will be recorded for internal documentation purposes only. The recording will be handled in accordance with applicable data protection regulations and will not be publicly disseminated. At the end of our event, I will ask all of you who want to switch on your camera so we can make a nice screenshot and post it in our social media accounts, just to give the presence of and give the feedback about our first webinar. So we will start, and I want to start with giving the floor to our first presenter, Oksana, who is a research fellow at the Research Center on Trustworthy Data Science and Security at the University Alliance Ruhr and University Duisburg-Essen. And Oksana will present the topic, the role of corruption and anti-corruption for resilience in Ukraine and beyond. As far as I know, Oksana has just published her recent work on this topic. I will paste it in the chat so everyone who is interested could be familiar with it. Oksana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrii. Hello, everyone. I need to apologize upfront for potential noises in the background because I'm just on the way to my other fellowship next to Rome, and I'm in some random cafe in Italy trying to keep the stable connection. So if you hear some Italian in the background, don't wonder why. Yes. So the paper, the ideas I would like to share today, they are more conceptual, more theoretical, although with some practical examples. And I'm sure that the next speakers, they will dive deeper into practice and the corruption practice in Ukraine. But the presentation I'm doing today, this is based on the ideas developed by the Institute for Europe, who have two projects on rule of law resilience, and they invited me to contribute to one of them that is about associated countries, including Ukraine. Within of this project, Institute for European Politics, they are using, in my opinion, quite informative and encouraging or refreshing model of rule of law resilience. And I applied this model to analyze the role of corruption and anti-corruption in the rule of law resilience. Now, just to start, before we go to rule of law and how it's associated with anti-corruption, a few words about resilience. So this is defined as the state in which the system under stress can return and fulfill its core functions. And basically, the Institute of European Politics, they are looking into the core of this system of rule of law, which is systemic dimension, including institution, constitution, judicial resilience, so the core of the rule of law. Then they have subsidiary dimension, which includes basically the institutional context all this core is operating in. And this is civil society, media, and especially political resilience, including political parties. And then we have the societal overall context where we have economic dimension, social dimension, and discursive dimension. So when we look into the role of corruption, corruption is quite a stressor for the rule of law. And if we look at these three segments of the circles, then we can define different forms of corruption that have different stress at the system. So if we look into the core and institutions, this is institutional corruption that is most dangerous one. And here Fernanda Odila and Alice Mattoni published a paper on institutional corruption through the lens of players and arenas that I encourage you to read. And how corruption is thought and affecting institutions. But in this case, it means that if institutions are corrupt, they do not fulfill the purpose of serving the public, they serve then private interests. And if we speak about the situation of the war, this is a very easy way for the aggressor country like Russia, or if we are thinking of other countries, to kind of undermine the state, the political system, if they target institutional corruption. Then the political corruption is quite dangerous for the subsidiary dimension, for second circle. And we often, like, that they are closely interwoven, the political and institutional corruption, but I see that political corruption is the way that is leading, that is facilitating institutional corruption. Basically, we are speaking about criminal petitions, or if large amounts of money are involved in political corruption. And then it can facilitate institutional corruption, because if oligarchs invest in political parties, all this undermines the input legitimacy. So it undermines trust in the society, and political parties, they are captured. So basically the parliament and then the entire system serves not anymore the public interest, but the private interest. And in the same way as institutional corruption, this can serve the purposes of strategic corruption that is used by aggressor country to undermine the system. And then we have this discursive dimension that is also very important. This is about the weaponization of corruption discourse. Often we take it as something maybe less important, but in terms of the logic that if we perceive corruption, we kind of think it's justified, then discourse that there is a lot of corruption is as important or as dangerous as the fact of corruption, right? And again, in Ukraine, we see many cases where Russia also uses purposefully different investigations against corruption or scandals of corruption to undermine trust in the society, and also serve it the hybrid war purposes. Now, a couple of examples how Ukraine was dealing with these three cycles. So if we look in the core, then the solution for Ukraine was, after the Revolution of Dignity, to focus on the independent island of anti-corruption, specialized anti-corruption institutions. So Ukraine has the institution for prevention of corruption, for investigation, and also the specialized court, high anti-corruption court. And this is the whole entire system, which is quite unique in the world, that is closed in itself, but also separated, divided from the regular system of justice and also regular political system. So it has its independence, especially through selections of judges, but also selections of the heads of those agencies. And this is important because it's really difficult to break through institutional corruption. So institutional corruption means when corruption is already kind of legitimized. So if the institution is captured, then there are the ways to, sometimes we are not even speaking about the crime of corruption in contrast to political corruption. In terms of political corruption, the way of dealing with this undermined input legitimacy that political parties were captured by oligarchs, so there is not necessarily always Russia, so often we are speaking about internal domestic problem of corruption that is weaponized by external aggressor. With the political parties, Ukraine developed many mechanisms of open government and participatory democracy that affect the system in a legitimate way by citizens or civil society, not only at the stage of elections, but also at the stage of decision-making and policy implementation. And finally, when we speak about this course, one nice initiative that I like a lot, this is the ethic commission of journalists that has been established by journalists, by professionals to keep the news ethical, but also evidence-based and checking them. And there is also systematic analysis by EU anti-corruption initiative in Ukraine, and also used by the National Agency for Corruption Prevention about how corruption is weaponized in the discourse to understand like what is in the media. Yes, so with these three examples, we see in Ukraine, one more point I would like to make. I know that I'm kind of almost over time. So one last point that I will do only briefly to refer to other countries. Here you see the OECD Public Integrity Indicators assessment of Ukraine. So the bulks in dark blue, these are regulations, and light blue, this is practice, and the dots, this is OECD average. And you see that Ukraine does quite well in terms of anti-corruption strategy, conflict of interest, and political finance. One point that I would like to make here with regards to resilience to rule of law, especially if it's weaponized by other countries, that anti-corruption is not sufficient on its own. So the anti-corruption system should operate in the environment of integrity. And I think this is a nice thing about the OECD public integrity approach, that this is quite comprehensive, including other measurements. And just to refer to other countries, I would like to take the example of Moldova here, that shows very high level of political finance accountability in practice. And we know that when latest elections in Moldova took place, just before the elections, Moldova had institutional mechanisms, so legislation basically, and institutions in practice to detect corruption or to detect Russian influence in political parties and to dismiss political party that is associated with Russia, which is quite unique because in many countries this is really a challenge. Many of them, like in Western democracies, we know that there is Russian influence on far-right political countries, but where the system are failing, exactly this point that Moldova actually has to this accountability and control of political finance in law and in practice. To show you another country, if you see the example of Serbia, we see that Serbia is dealing quite well in terms of anti-corruption strategy in law and in practice, the implementation, but they are performing very poorly in terms of control of political finance and transparency of public information. And we know that among the accession countries, Serbia is unfortunately quite well known for quite widespread foreign influence. So one point that I would like to make here, and this is not a coherent academic research, this is more like an analysis, analytical paper that was for the purposes of this specific project on rule of law resilience. So one point that anti-corruption is important, it's necessary, but this is not sufficient to ensure the to preserve the system from the foreign influence and capture. And I will stop here. Thank you, Andrii.
Okay, thank you, Oksana. This was both informative and inspiring. I hope everyone enjoyed your presentation. And again, I repeat myself that we paste as a link for Oksana's recent work on this topic. Before we move on, I'd like also to invite you to follow the social media accounts of the Respond project if you'd like to be in loop about the upcoming events, the project results and project publications. Please feel free to join our social media. They are pasted in the chat. So our next speaker is Marharyta Chabanna. She is Doctor Habilitat in Political Science. She is also a chair of the Political Science Department at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. And she will present the work which is called Digital Oversight Against Rent-Seeking, Social Perception and Public Trust in Wartime. Please, Marharyta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrii, and I'll try to speak briefly. So first of all, I have to mention that rent-seeking, I will talk about rent-seeking, may be defined as economic and political activity aimed at securing benefits through privileged access to resources, public decision-making, administrative procedures, and so on and so forth. Sure, in the conditions of war, the risks associated with rent-seeking intensify considerably and I think generate particularly advanced consequences for the state and for the society. And I think that the social dimension is one of the most important in this field. So in particular, I want to emphasize that rent-seeking during wartime may undermine national defense capacity. It's extremely important nowadays, and when public resources are distributed through corrupt mechanisms that affect security sector, all of us know that it's quite dangerous. To be brief, I just named the next risk. The second one is related to simplification of some procedures and tools. On the one hand, this simplification can provide administrative flexibility and rapid response, but at the same time, this simplification expands opportunities for corruption, and this risk includes inflated pricing in defense procurement, non-transparent distribution of humanitarian aid, and so on and so forth. Then rent-seeking distorts market competition. I will not explain in details these aspects, just want to emphasize that conditions of resource scarcity foster the expansion of the shadow economy. We know that it's one of the most negative consequences in when we are talking about market economy functioning. What is very important, rent-seeking during wartime may affect international support. Perception of systemic corruption or resource capture can reduce the trust of international partners, complicate access to additional financial and military assistance, and in general weaken states' negotiating position, our position. Additionally, I define so-called social effect because rent concentration among privileged groups produces significant social consequences. It may provoke public discontent, reduce trust in government institutions, reduce trust in president, and intensify social tensions. In wartime, such developments are especially destabilizing as they undermine social cohesion and national unity that are critical components of social resilience. And finally, rent-seeking during a war also jeopardizes the ways, the trajectory of sustainable post-war development, post-war recovery. So now we'll examine how digital oversight reduces the risk of rent-seeking. And first of all, I assume that digital transparency is one of the most effective tools for mitigating rent-seeking. I will show you some survey data, and I'll try to connect these ideas. Particularly, it's important in the context of war and large-scale budgetary flows. It doesn't merely, so-called make information open, but digital transparency rather transforms the structure of incentives and enhance political accountability. I think it's extremely important when we are talking not only about technical aspects, but about political accountability. Such the mechanisms of digital transparency, I just name these mechanisms: public electronic procurement systems, maybe one of the most popular and well-known. Then open registries, what is very important, especially for journalism investigations and so on. Then online public expenditure portals, automation of administrative services, electronic queues, and digital allocation of resources. It's quite important as well because, for instance, it's about housing for internally displaced people. It's about humanitarian assistance. So this tool is very relevant nowadays. Then quite significant mechanism or quite significant tool is open data initiatives and investigative journalism, and of course digital tools of civic participation. Let's examine how Ukrainian society perceives the use of digital tools aimed at mitigating the risks of rent-seeking. Empirical data, as you see, empirical data on public support proves that the majority of Ukrainians positively assess the performance of state digital platforms and services. And due to the East Europe Foundation, 75%, I open the data, 75% of people are satisfied with public services. 86% rate digital services provided by business positively. And we have interesting data provided by Kyiv International Institute of Sociology. Approximately 84% of e-service users rate the experience as fairly or very positive, and the share of these people has been steadily increasing. I think it's important. Among the surveyed respondents, 52% said online e-services were the most convenient and effective way to receive government services. I want to draw attention to common stereotype regarding the low digital literacy of Ukrainian society, because it doesn't reflect the current situation at all. I think it's extremely significant. Note, in 2025, Ukraine has reached a significant digital milestone. 96% of the population now possesses digital skills, with 58% demonstrating basic or higher proficiency. Since 2019, the percentage of adults without basic digital skills has dropped from 15 to just 4%. Even during the wartime, Ukrainians remain highly connected. 97% have internet access and 92% use it daily. Also, I want to say that 55% of Ukrainians used at least one digital public service in the past year. Of course, it's clear that young people and urban residents are the most active users, but digital engagement is growing across all age groups. At the same time, between 11 and 60 million, you can see this data on the slide, use open data-based services on a monthly basis, which corresponds to approximately 39-55% of the country's internet audience. This occurs despite the fact that Ukraine's data openness indicator remains below half of its potential level, approximately 44%. On the eve of the full-scale invasion, the openness indicator was 57.6%, but we understand that this decrease depends on security reasons. Just one more detail. The main reasons for not using digital service include a lack of perceived needs, insufficient data skills, limited access, and distrust in electronic services, because some people, especially when we're talking about elder people, have the low level of trust. We know that restricting open data under the pretext of security provokes public discontent and negatively affect trust in the state. So public support and increasing satisfaction with digital services can strengthen civil trust or public trust in state institutions, in particular when these services are perceived as transparent, accessible, and efficient. I want to say that overall attitudes toward corruption as an informal institution in post-Soviet states are ambivalent. Because people used to rely on historically used to rely on informal relationships. Informal networks were frequently, as we know, mobilized in opposition to the state as substitutive or complementary social and political institutions. And this helps to explain a certain degree of tolerance toward corruption, particularly everyday corruption during 1990s, after gaining independence. In general, the trends can be presented as follows. Until the Orange Revolution, high tolerance of corruption and low expectation regarding anti-corruption efforts were observed. Between 2005 and 2005 and 2010, political sensitivity to this phenomenon increased. After that, until 2013, pronounced dissatisfaction with systematic corruption became evident and culminating in what may be termed an anti-corruption mobilization, so-called anti-corruption mobilization during 2014-2016. The period of 2017-2021 was by sustained public demand for anti-corruption reforms, accompanied by a certain degree of skepticism towards the effectiveness of newly established anti-corruption institutions, new anti-corruption initiatives, and as we understand, since 2022, corruption has increasingly been perceived by society as a threat to national security. At the same time, yes.
Sorry, if I could ask you for one final remark, because unfortunately,
sure, yes. Okay. At the same time, so I want to show you the data about trust, political trust, public trust to political institutions, and then public trust. You see, yes, the logic, the tendency, and public trust to anti-corruption institutions, what is important because a lot of people try to identify so-called generalized activity of politicians and anti-corruption actions. So just to finalize, I want to say that the main factors influencing trust include speed of justice, transparency of communication, political independence of institutions, and information campaigns and media environment. At the same time, of course, there are some technical, political, and even social risks in implementing these tools. And I just want to add that in such a context, in addition to publishing data, using tools on transparency is necessary to increase public awareness through media initiatives and civic campaigns, and as well integrate digital systems with local level oversight mechanisms, what I think is quite important for Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Marharyta, for this presentation, and thank you for highlighting the potential of digital tools to address, among other things, the rent seeking. This gives us a strong analytical background, and we can move to our other speakers. And we will move from more academic perspective to a practical one, where we are looking at how these tools are applied in reality. Our next speaker is Vita Dumanska. She is a coordinator of CHESNO movement. This is a non-governmental organization in Ukraine, which is well known, among other things, for advocating for political finance transparency. Vita, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrii. And probably today we'll be talking about our political finance reform. I saw that on Oksana's slide that we are quite good in terms of regulation, in terms of party finance, but still we are developing in a practical area. So first of all, probably you know that Ukraine currently launched the we call it Polidata 2.0. It's like another version of a digital register of political parties. And to have this register, it took us 10 years. Basically, all the reform and digitalization, it doesn't come in one day. So when I joined the civil society sector in 2015, I actually led the campaign which was advocating for political finance reform. And I remember in 2016 when we got the party financial reports, and they were in PDFs and they were in paper-based format, and it was totally, you couldn't aggregate them, you couldn't compare them, you can't analyze data systematically. So at that time we developed a tool to digitalize those PDFs. It was called Gold of the Party. and it allowed to visualize the reports, to compare different political parties, to compare regions. It was a really cool tool. Now, Politdata is like comparing to what we had 10 years ago. It's well structured, it's well searchable database with the open API, so you can get all the data, you can filter, you can search, and actually, I think it's brought total transparency to party finance area. And usually we are criticizing the national agencies because they are not so fast, they are not so good. But in this case, I think it's a remarkable achievement. And even I saw the great results for Moldova, I mean, great score for Moldova. But Politdata is much better than the tool that Moldova got. So we're quite successful in that. My message is that transparency, it's not one-time decision. It's like a long-term institutional investment. In our case, to assure transparency in party finance, it took us 10 years. But transparency doesn't mean accountability. So Politdata is just a tool. We have that tool, but it doesn't guarantee the integrity of political finance. I think it's very important message, because if the main stakeholders are not using that tool, if the journalists are not writing about political finance and about what they found in the party's financial reports, and if the agency, I mean National Agency of Corruption Prevention, has no enforcement capacity, this transparency has no demand, and it doesn't lead to full accountability. I was preparing to that presentation, and I was trying to find the totally different aspect about which I was never speaking. So I was trying to analyze how this transparency and this tool, what it gives to main stakeholder. And before, in terms of party finance in Ukraine, we were never been talking about academia. Usually you have, to be honest, in previous year, we had 5 to 7 experts who were really good in party finance, who know every detail and who were good in data analysis, in regulation and legislative analysis. But they were financed mainly by USAID, and it was not a popular area to dig into, and totally unpopular area in terms of academic research. But now, if we have this tool, it's like open the market. So the researchers, they can have access to the data, they can build models, they can develop their prognosis, they can analyze how efficient state funding was, how efficient small fundraising is, some differences between developing big party, small party, fake donors. So there are so many research issues which came to agenda after opening that tool. So I think that it's a huge potential to academia sector to work with the party finance, because we have a lot of researches, but they mainly done based on the elections, based on elections result, but only few good papers I saw in terms of party finance. Another stakeholders are the journalists. I remember when we started first investigation in party finance in 2016, it was totally not sexy topic. Nobody was willing to dig into the data, to search these PDF files, but we managed to tell two very, I think, huge stories. First was about fake donors of Biletskyi political parties. We filmed them, we found them. At that time, political parties was stolen personal data from the vulnerable groups, and we told the story of that. We managed to tell the story of another party. They used the fake donors among teachers. It was ex-president political party. When you started to work with that data, the journalists, especially regional one, they came into the field, and having political data results for them, it's very easy to see who is financing the local branch of political party, on what they are spending. Do they declare all the spendings or not? And it gives a lot of accountability actually to the regional politics. Another stakeholder is the agency by itself, because having polit data, they can stop doing a lot of routine work, because this comparison, automatic detection of mistakes, automatic red flags analysis, it's conducted by the tool, and they can spend more time on some strategical assignment and focus on violations, on digging into the schemes and detecting those schemes. So I think automation is not a substitute for political will to check all this data, but it gives for them a lot of opportunity. And finally, political parties. I know that their accountant, they like polit data because it's very easy to, it simplifies reporting and record keeping. You have to be more careful with the putting information, so on, but it simplify your life as an accountant of political parties. But from another side, political parties understand that having all this information publicly available brings a lot of attention to them, especially from journalists, even from regular citizens. In our case, we had in our work, we had a very nice and interesting case when we first presented distribution of state fund among the region of one of political parties, and we got so many requests from the head of regional branches. They were asking why we are getting 10 times less than the others. And it's started discussion of the criteria of fund distribution. They were asking what we should do to get more money, how we can affect this distribution process. That this transparency is useful also for internal party development. Oksana started talking about election and campaign finance. In our case, it's very important right now, but currently we just can train ourselves to work with the polit data, but we have to be prepared towards election, and we have a great expectation on that source before election. But I'm not sure that it would be easy using that tool to detect Russian money, because parties are not so stupid to bring directly money associated with Russia to their official bank accounts. Still, the working group in the parliament is developing some limitations and some measures which allow us to stop electoral process, or to say that we are not recognize this election as a fair when we see that it was a lot of foreign interference or some other factors. We don't have this regulation in place yet, but we have to protect the results using that measure. So, as I told you, this transparency, it brought and contributed a lot to the cultural shift in terms of political norms. Now parties are not trying to hide, they are thinking how to report in a smart way. I know that still about from 50 to 70% of political money are shadow money, but still we are trying to build the transparent system, and we are trying to force political parties to be transparent. So polit data is a great tool, but it can't solve all the problems. It empowered oversight actors, it increased reputational risk for political parties, and it strengthened electoral integrity. So we as a civil society, as the regulators, we have to work with the tool which gives transparency to make it not just transparent but accountable. And I am a big fan of party finance, and I still hope that its topic will become sexy and for academia, for civil society members, and Ukraine can be a very good example among European partners. Thank you. That's probably everything from my side.
Vita, thank you very much for this insightful presentation and talk about Poly Data Register in Ukraine and its role in preventing corruption. Building on this, we now turn to our next key dimension of transparency. It's the use of digital tools to strengthen political accountability in practice, and also how to deal with this during wartime and during the future reconstruction projects in Ukraine. And our next speaker is Anastasia Mazurok. She is representing Transparency International of Ukraine, and she will share how platforms like Prozoro and Dream help reduce political corruption risks in Ukraine. Anastasia, please.
Thank you, Andrii, and thank you, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. And really, Ukraine is often associated today with war or corruption, but for us today topic is, and we show all speakers, I think, that Ukraine is also could be a country of digital innovation and a digital example to serve for global best practices in transparency and accountability. And so today I would like to speak about two such tools as Prozoro, Ukraine's public procurement system, and Dream, the digital restoration ecosystem and accountable management. What does it mean, Prozoro? Prozoro is Ukrainian's electronic public procurement system that collects all procurement transactions funded by national or local budgets. It was founded after Revolution of Dignity in 2014-2015, and the core principle is simple but very revolutionary for our country and for even a lot of European country for now, as we know that everyone sees everything. So what does it mean? All tenders are conducted online, all documents are public and available, and all contracts are visible, and everyone can see at all stages of the process, and even upload some documents and analyze and to make some trends analyses. This opportunity has changed the rules of the game completely. It reduces opportunities for backroom deals. It increased competition among businesses. It opened the new market for a lot of representatives of business, and even provided the new share of market and even new type of business for who work with actually digital tools and who help to organize all this process, like some platform which we called Market, who is a moderator between business and state. And also it enables civil society and journalists and everyone who want to see something to monitor spending in real time and to see and to protect the money actually. But as all we today talk, transparency alone is not enough. Data must be usable and accountable. That's why Transparency International Ukraine developed a public BI Prozoro module, business intelligence module, a free analytical tool that allows deep analysis of procurement data, and also develop and engage participants for civil monitoring. What does it mean? What model enables users to filter tenders by dozens of criteria, analyze different pricing trends, detect some patterns, compare procuring entities, and identify actually overpricing or something like that. And actually, these data are actively used by regulatory agencies, procurement entities, businesses, active citizens, journalists, and researchers. And what we see, what is the real impact? Let me illustrate just in practice how it works and what are our results. Only during the last year, our team, Transparency International Ukraine team, who is focusing on monitoring of public procurement, our team managed to monitor and actually monitor procurement for 32 million of dollars in budget funds, not like only monitor, but prevent to inefficient use of such amount of money. How? We analyze tenders, identify potential overpricing, engaging with procurement entities, and was initiators of different criminal procedures as well. Based on our monitoring, 11 criminal cases have already been launched only for couple last months. For example, building insulation in Dnipro city, which is on the eastern part of Ukraine. Monitoring, during the year, we monitored different 13 tenders for building insulation in the city of Dnipro. And after our monitoring, we helped to the state to save $2.5 million because we saw all time, we identify inflated costs in these tenders, and after our official letters, we managed to save this money for Dnipro, and the city council and the mayor of the city address the response that, okay, yes, thank you very much. We saw these mistakes you mentioned in your letters, and we they actually have new contract, new agreement, and they managed to save this money. And other, our like favorite case, because of cable clamps were priced 100 times higher than the market rate. And also after our dialogue with entities, they ignored our request to correct the price, but we escalated the case, and we went to the ombudsman, who issued an administrative report, and eventually the contract value were reduced by like $500,000, exactly the amount of likely overpayment. And this case actually illustrates the important lesson that transparency creates visibility, but of course accountability requires persistent and institutional response, and of course civic pressure. And the other tool, Dream, which was actually created already during the war, and the digital restoration ecosystem for accountable management, that was actually initiative name of this system. But now this platform is becoming not only about restoration, but in real time tracking the recovery and reconstruction spending, but the general ecosystem to of public investment money that and all accumulate different projects, not only as a response of restoration, but as the innovation development of the country. This platform aggregates information of all different type of projects funded by Ukrainian state, local governments, international partners, and different financial institutions. It operates at national, regional, and local levels. What does it help for? Anyone, anywhere in the world can track how much money is allocated for each project, who implements the project, what stage is in, and if some entity want to fund it for this project, they can choose the project they want to support. As of today, Dream hosts more than 15,000 of projects, but the total price is more than $75 billion of dollars. Of course, most of these projects are not funded already, so they just project proposals for future development of the country. And to conclude, Ukraine is fighting not only for the territory, but also for institutional integrity. And through this case platform, digital tools demonstrate that even under this condition, we still provide opportunities and provide instruments how to reduce corruption risks and strengthen democratic governance. And these tools reduce discretion, create digital footprints, enable automated risk analysis, empower independent oversight, and increase reputational cost of any misconduct. And they even importantly shift the balance of power. Information is no longer monopolized, but it becomes accessible to the citizens. So that's why we do believe that such type of tools are very important, and they provide not only transparency but accountability and real instrument of influence. Thank you.
Anastasia, thank you very much for your presentation, for your speech. We have a couple of questions in the chat, and we still have time for them. First, Fernanda asked all of the speakers, how do you see the security and defense narrative being used to legitimize rollbacks in transparency and accountability? And how can civil society effectively respond, considering that war creates exceptional circumstances that may be seen as a legit justification to close databases, reduce transparency, and reduce opportunities to social accountability? Please, Marharyta, Anastasia, Vita, or Oksana, anyone who would like to jump in with the response to this question? I see Oksana have already answered this in the chat. So whether you see actually, basically what Fernanda is asking, whether do you see that in terms of security and defense, there are rollbacks in order to close the registers, for example? Whether you think it's relevant for Ukraine or not? Oh, yeah, I see that. Sorry, Valentina, our speakers cannot. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got the switch off of electricity. That's why I entered the Zoom room. Regarding the question about what if the authorities trying to hide information and excusing that by the security situation. We had a lot of example. The recent one, when we manage, like in CHESNO, we are working a lot with the opponents of Ukrainian parliament. And when the war has started, they closed live broadcasting. And if you want to watch what's been discussed in the parliament, you have to wait 2 a.m. and check it on the Rada TV channel. So that was ridiculous. And so we were doing this advocacy campaign for almost 2 years to open that. But when we had a protest to protect anti-corruption infrastructure, the parliament did really bad stuff in terms of attacking NABU and SAPO. So they had no choices and they resumed that translation. So that was quite of the achievement. We also been fighting like 4 years to resume party financial reporting, which stopped during the COVID times. And it was like joint efforts of many Ukrainian civil society organizations. And finally, with the help of European partners, we resumed that. I mean, authorities all the time are trying to roll back, but the civil society is trying to push forward. Now we have a couple of issues with the registers. We're still not able to return what they did, but we are trying our best. Maybe some other from speaker can give a good recipe how to fight with that. But the advocacy, publicity, and the European partners, they are really good supporters in that process.
Anastasia, would you like to jump in?
I actually agree with Vita said that yeah, we need to have some balance of like safety and openness, and we always look for this balance. And of course, some data should be closed for sure for some reason, but still we see that some actors or stakeholders are very interested in be closed just for their own needs. And yeah, our instruments of influence are advocacy campaigns, analysis, and international partners.
Okay, thank you very much. Oksana, Gus, thank you very much for addressing the questions in the chat that are dedicated to your topic. Oksana Nestorenko, you have raised hand, please. You can ask your question.
Probably you need to unmute her also.
I think from the technical point of view, Valentina.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. Something with my connection. I try to. If I can. So my question is, first of all, thank you so much for so grateful and thankful presentations. Like I really learn a lot. And thank you for organize Andrii and the other colleagues and Oksana and Valentina, like this is great workshop. So I'm curious, you know, how we see globally, we see the political corruption really directly connected to authoritarian tendency and declaring democracy around the world. And we see actually, it seems like academic community and civil society community, global civil society community, like lost at least this battle, yeah, to informal corruption network, and that is like actually has like international, they're like very active international. So based on your all expertise and data, what your guess? Actually, why we lost this battle? Because like financial sources we have like that is less than like this corruption and formal network, or it's maybe or it's maybe something else. Maybe we was very late when we started take it seriously, like academic community and civil society to work on this topic. I mean, or maybe something else. I mean, what is your guess? Why we lost this battle? Definitely right now we lost.
I can try to answer that question, but I think that we have to look a bit broader, not just civil society and academia losing the battle. Basically, not the issue is not in not just in anti-corruption battle, because probably we are losing battle in terms of democracy, because many more countries becoming autocratic countries, and I think focus only on corruption issue is too narrow, and we have to think broader. And I don't have the answer. Probably the autocratic countries, they are autocracies, they are more organized, they are not having this discussion, consultation, stakeholder engagement, and all that stuff, and they are not about building like strong strategic relation, they just building situationship. So that's why probably we are losing that battle. But if somebody has a better suggestion about anti-corruption issue, that would be great.
Marharyta, Anastasia.
I just want to add a couple of words. Oksana, I think your question contains the answer because it's my personal opinion. We have to pay attention to a great role of informal networks. We can call it nepotism, neopatrimonialism, as you want, but informal networks play a huge role in this context, and it's related to all Vita now talk about. It was just a small comment.
Yeah, if I may, I will just a few words will add that I also agree that we need to see broader, and not only in Ukraine we have we lost the battle, but in like in couple of weeks, we Transparency International Ukraine presented the global product, our corruption perception index, and we as Ukraine have like +1, but globally we see also a negative trend. We see the decreasing level of CPI globally, and we don't have some any increasing in top countries of this ranking. So I feel we really probably should here have the discussion of some maybe global values, global approaches of not only of governance, yeah, probably. So I think something is going on with our planet and with the world. We should look for some more complex decision, maybe, or just to adopt to this circumstance and to find solutions in this context.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that we are a little bit over time. I see one question which is not addressed, Vita, in the chat. Could you please answer this in the chat, also in written? There is a question from Alicia Fubini. On this note, I would like to conclude our discussion. Of course, I would like to thank to all of our speakers for these rich and thought-provoking presentations. As we saw that today's conversation, it actually highlighted how closely political corruption linked with digital transparency and democratic resilience also, and especially in the context of ongoing war and future recovery processes. Thank you all for joining today's Response seminar. This is just the beginning. The next Response seminar will take place somewhere in April 2026 and will be organized by the Central European University as part of our ongoing exploration of corruption, governance, and democratic resilience. Please stay tuned with our social media in order to continue watching on our news and updates. Before we end this discussion, I'd like to ask everyone to turn on their camera so we can take a nice and cozy screenshot for our social media.